Hi, George Durkee again, Columbia College with our class ArcGIS Online, creating web maps. And this will be lesson 3, creating a geoform. It'll probably at least be in 2 parts and maybe even 3, depending on how much fun we're having. So a geoform is an online form you create and you post it on your web map, convert it to an app, although actually it runs as a standalone after you've created it. And then people can go to the link, fill in the form, and locate wherever their information comes from or wherever they are on the map. And it's stored essentially as a geo database, and you can download it, put it onto your ARC10 desktop, or you can even view the data directly on ArcGIS Online. So your first step is we're going to use Suvey123, which is a pretty darned easy way of creating a form to be used online. There's other ways of doing it. You can actually just use create a CSV file, comma separated file, and upload that. And there's actually a pretty good YouTube video on doing that. But Esri has come up with Suvey123, and so I'll post this when I post the lesson, but it's Suvey123, all one word, .arcgis.com. And so then you come to the page here, which if you scroll down explains all about Suvey123 and has additional links to documents and videos on how to use it. And I should also mention that to be able to use this, for those of you not in my class viewing this, you do need a organizational account with ArcGIS Online. I'm not 100% sure their free accounts do it, but I'll put a plug in here for their massive online classes free from Esri, and one of them is a class on creating web apps, and with that class you get a developer's account with AGOL, and I think about 50 credits or something like that, and it's a great deal and it's a great course. So if you're not in this class, look up Esri's MOOC, Massive Online Class, or whatever that stands for, and look for their next class, so you can the next app class, so you can get an account. So assuming you're signed in to the Columbia College organizational account, and if not, it'll ask you to do that. You go to My Surveys, and you'll want to create a new survey. Now first, we'll just go ahead and create a new survey, and you can see how it works. You give it a name, and I've got an idea here. We'll call this Ranger Field Survey Geoform and Test 1. And then they want tags, and I always put test in there so that you can go through all of your, as you start building up files, you'll want to get rid of a lot of this junk you're just trying things out with. So put test in there, and then geoform, and I don't know, field survey, and then just something reasonably quick. This is a first draft of a field survey using geoforms. Okay, that's pretty good. But just make sure you keep it in a numbered series, because I find that you know, I'll try variations on the same one and I get lost in the series. So if you go in some sort of order with the same name, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., then that'll help you. And the first thing we're going to do here, and we'll do this sort of in order, and I'm doing this so that we're not going to actually create the form just yet. Um, Show you what your options are going to be, and then uh, when you get here, you want to have your form written down, and you can see the types of form you can make. So for instance, you have single line text, you have multi-line text. So if you have notes or something like that, and they want to put in a paragraph or two, then you use that. For single line text, I often use that as a single header descriptive or something like that. You have radio buttons where you just give a single choice, and so if you hit one radio button, by your choice, it's highlighted. But if you hit a second radio button, it switches to that as your choice. Then you have multiple choice, so you can click on several choices and they all stay the same. You can do ratings. You can do a drop down, which is often useful, especially to speed up the process of field observations. So they're already given a choice, and the nice thing is you can also put in other, and then that gives something that may not fit into your choices. But the nice thing about drop downs is it allows you to enforce certain field record choices, so that there won't be spelling errors, and there won't be sort of random. People may not see their choices the same as you do, so you want to enforce that, and that allows you to more easily classify or order things later on. That's new. I have no idea what that is, but we'll worry about it later. You can put in a number field, time field, date field is obviously pretty important. A geopoint, and that's the idea of this whole thing, is you add a locator, so it'll show up on the map where the observation was, or where the person lives, or whatever you want. You can attach an image, and you can link to a website, put in an email address, and put in notes. So as I said, the idea of knowing what's available, knowing the tools you have to work from, you then sit down with a notebook and design your form. So then you can decide if you want drop downs or single line or multiple line. And so what I do is design the form on paper, and then put a little note on what particular form type, field type I want to represent it, and then go through and design the form itself with Suvey123. Now, there's two versions of Suvey123. This is the online one, and it's the easiest. And there's also a utility, an app you can download for your desktop, and it works within Excel, and it allows you a lot more ability to change things. And so if you choose one choice, for instance, then you can set it to automatically open up with other choices, depending on what choice A was. It works like a decision tree. So there's a lot of stuff you can do on that, but this is truly easy. And so this is what we'll teach here. And if you're into it, I encourage you to download the app. And then that, of course, once you download it, you connect it to your ArcGIS Online account, and so when you save something, it saves it onto your account. So that's where it lives. So in this case, I've developed a survey, and the idea is what I'm actually trying to do, which is kind of a real thing, is in the Park Service, there's a huge amount of turnover amongst rangers in a particular park, and so they develop an awful lot of knowledge, in the 3 to 5 and sometimes 30 or 40 years they're there. So how do you capture that knowledge? When a ranger leaves, We can't do a Spock mind meld, but we can look for ways of capturing as much geospatial knowledge that they have. So for instance, I was talking to a friend the other day who's retired, and we were talking about poaching camps, camps inside the park where people come in, they're really out of the way, hidden, and they come in to poach deer. So he's one of the very few people who pretty much knows where all of them are. He was there for 30 years, but he retired. Nobody else knows that. So, capturing that sort of thing, or let's say you're into plants, you find rare plants, the locations of them, or see particularly interesting wildlife. Fisher or wolverine are extremely rare. They don't have ways to actually capture that, but in my experience, sometimes rangers out wandering around don't always record that. So anyway, that's the point of this particular survey, and you can design a survey for anything. It can be, ask for feedback for a business you run, or really anything. So let's try and set this survey up reasonably quickly. We'll hope for the best. So the first thing I'm going to put in, and you just drag and drop. So I'm going to drag in date, and then you highlight that, and you'll notice that it's highlighted here in blue, and it goes over here to the edit tab. And so for a label, this is what shows up right here, untitled question 1. So you want to change that to date of submission, say, or you could have just said today's date. And then that's pretty self-explanatory, so you don't have to put in any additional hints or anything like that. And so then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in another date, and this one will be date of observation. So you want the date, that someone's actually filling this out, but then you also want the date of when they saw this, and it could even be years earlier. So then here in the notes, you might want to say that they can add additional information in notes. So for instance, they may have seen something, in a certain month, but not on a specific date, but just close enough is what we're after here. And then back to add, and let's put in single line text. And highlight that, and let's put in general, and I'm kind of winging it here, general subject, it's not very good, general description, how's that? And that'll just be a short sentence describing observation. And you can put these in any order here because you can change the order later on. And so let's do a drop down here. And actually, let's put the drop down first. We'll highlight that, and we'll put observation type. And for that, now we go down here to our choices. So let's put law enforcement, because they're rangers. And let's put resource damage. And let's try and spell resource right. Oops, recourse, that won't work. Let's try this again. Resource damage. So that's if, excuse me. So that's if somebody's cut down a tree or left garbage or something like that. And then the third will be natural history observation. Now ideally everything fits into those three categories, but it could be you want a third, and let's put other. Did I spell that right? I did. Good. And then something I didn't point out earlier is you can require entries on any of these. Back to add. And let's add multiline text. So let's make that, once again, remember to highlight it here. And let's make that notes, longer description of observation. And also be noticing the other, you can put in a default value that will appear if you want something to always be there. But if it's left blank, then obviously you'll just have a blank form field. Again, required, and you can set a minimum and maximum character count. You'd probably want some experience, I mean, what people answer, but I'm just going to leave that as is. Back to add, and let's do another single line. And this will be submitted by, so you want who's submitting it. Add, and then a contact. You could actually make this a say an email field, but let's just leave it at contact. So contact, and then email or phone. Add again, and getting a little too carried away here, but we're having fun. Location description for one line, and let's make that required, and let's make contact required. And finally, let's put in the geopoint. And so that'll be location of observation. And you can add a descriptive. For this, you can choose the map. I'm going to stick with topographic. And I'm going to make this a required question. And I think that's good enough for the moment. Now, you can change the order, so you can put, you can just drag location description up higher. In fact, maybe we'll do that. Well, no, let's leave it down here. Oops, leave it above location observation. Let's save this, and you should always save as you go. You can preview it, get an idea, even though you can't fill in some of the forms, form fields. And so that's just what the pure form will look like. Notice that you've got a drop down there for date, and all your other instructions are there. And then the tag for your location. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. And maybe it'll work here. I don't think so. So let's see if it'll search. Yeah, it does. So you can type in a place, and just have it focus in right on Twainhart there, and then you submit, or you can actually move the map. You don't move the point, you move the map with this particular form. Others are different, and other templates you use will actually reverse that, where you can move the point. So anyway, and so you might want to put in some instructions on that, but and then you submit, but it won't accept submit because this is the preview. And so then we X out of it. And then you want to check appearance. They don't have a whole lot of choices here, unfortunately. I was hoping you could put in your own photo background, but that's not yet possible. So at the moment we have, and this is just when you're using the pure form here and not putting it on a web app. So you can have it green or gray. You want some contrast there. Let's stick with green, or you can put a mountain scene. Sure, let's do that. You can decide which layout elements you want, whether you want a header or not, and the description and the footer. You can put something in down here, but let's go with that. Finally, you want to publish this. You have to make sure that this is what you want, because once you publish it, you can't actually change the fields, whereas you can, if I'm remembering correctly, with the desktop version, the Excel version of Geoform. So what you see is what you're going to have as your form. There's other things you can change once you publish. You can change the map, you can add data to the web map, but the form stays the same. And that's why I suggest using version number as you go, because probably your first one won't be, you won't be totally happy with it. But for the purpose of this class, if you can put in, and I'll outline this in the actual assignment, so go back and read that, but I'll want several different types of field types. Okay, so let's publish. And this is, are you sure you want to do this? You bet. So what it does here is it actually, within your table of contents, it creates a actual folder with all of the form and the specific database, and so you can actually link this directly, because like I said, this will actually work and send the link to anyone you think may want to fill it in. In the next video, I'll show you how to actually create a web map. We'll do the same thing when we created a web app. There's actually a template called the Geoform template for a web app, and we'll do that. And there's a whole bunch of other variations you can do, but I'll show you how to do those two things, and that'll be good for the total lesson. So, okay, that'll wrap up this first lesson, and I'll post the second lesson with luck later today. Thanks.